Family vanished on a winter road trip. 15 years later, satellite images revealed the truth. When a single email arrived containing a satellite image from 3 weeks ago, it revealed something impossible. Fresh tire tracks leading to a cabin in a valley searchers had declared empty 15 years earlier. The woman staring at that photograph had spent half her life mourning a family she believed was dead. She was about to discover they had been alive all along. Before we dive into this mystery, please like, subscribe to the channel, and comment on what you think happened. Your opinion could be the key to understanding this story. The bedroom smelled of lavender and old paper. At 32, Ana Torres had built a career as a documentary filmmaker. But every project felt hollow compared to the story she couldn't finish. What happened to her family that winter morning 15 years ago? The email from Northern Meteorological Research Company contained a satellite image dated 3 weeks prior. The coordinates matched exactly where search teams had focused after her parents and younger brother vanished during a weekend trip in 2009. Fresh tire tracks cut through pristine snow, leading to a cabin with smoke rising from its chimney. Solar panels gleamed on the roof. A greenhouse stood nearby, clearly maintained and functional. This was impossible. Authorities had declared the valley uninhabited after weeks of searching. They'd told her the winter storm had been too severe, that no one could have survived. Yet here was undeniable proof. Someone was living there. Someone had been there just weeks ago. She grabbed her laptop and cross-referenced the coordinates with original search reports. Perfect match. This was the exact area where her family's rental vehicle had last been spotted before vanishing. Her phone rang. The meteorological company's analyst sounded cautious. "Ms. Torres, that cabin isn't on any official maps. It doesn't appear in our historical data from 2008 or 2010, but starting around 2012, there's a structure there. The solar panels and greenhouse aren't amateur installations. Whoever built this knew exactly what they were doing. This is permanent settlement, not temporary shelter." After hanging up, Ana sat surrounded by newspaper clippings and faded photographs. She thought about her brother Miguel, only 5 when they disappeared. He'd be 20 now, a man she wouldn't recognize. She thought about her mother's goodbye kiss that Friday morning, promising to bring back maple syrup, about her father carefully packing the SUV, checking supplies with unusual thoroughness. Had it all been planned? Had they known they weren't coming back? The filmmaker's mind raced through possibilities, each more disturbing than the last. A cabin that didn't exist on maps. Fresh signs of life in supposedly empty wilderness. 15 years of questions suddenly crystallizing into one terrifying possibility. What if her family hadn't died in that storm? What if they'd been there all along, alive and hidden just a few hundred miles away? But if they were alive, why had they never contacted her? Why had they let her grow up believing she was an orphan when they were living in that remote valley? And most disturbing of all, what were they hiding from that was dangerous enough to make parents abandon their daughter and fake their own deaths? 3 days later, Ana stood in the parking lot of Pine Ridge Diner, the last place her family had been seen alive. The building looked frozen in time. Weathered wood siding, flickering neon sign, windows reflecting snow-capped mountains. The moment she pushed through the door, the smell overwhelmed her. Strong coffee, maple syrup, and decades of bacon grease absorbed into every surface. Conversations died as locals turned to study the stranger. She'd been here twice before. Once as a 7-year-old child. Once during the desperate search when she was 17. Now, at 32, she carried evidence they couldn't dismiss. Dorothy, the silver-haired waitress, recognized her immediately. "You're the daughter who stayed behind." She slid into the booth without asking permission, her weathered face shifting with recognition. "Your mama ordered pancakes with extra butter. Your daddy had the breakfast special. The little one got syrup everywhere and made your mama laugh." The specificity hit hard. These weren't vague memories, but details preserved with care. As if Dorothy had known even then that this meal would matter. Did they say anything about where they were going? Dorothy glanced around, checking who might be listening, then lowered her voice. Your daddy asked about old forestry roads. Wanted to know which were passable in winter. Not tourist routes. Restricted access roads. The ones logging companies don't use anymore. Environmental protection zones. Why would that be strange? Because those roads are officially closed. Your mama kept studying a detailed map with markings on it. Not a regular tourist map. Dorothy traced the edge of Anna's photograph. I told the search teams, but the sheriff said I was misremembering, that grief makes people imagine details. But you're certain? I've worked here 37 years. I remember that morning because something felt wrong. The way your parents kept glancing at each other, sharing secrets. How your mama held your brother too tight when leaving. It felt like goodbye. Real goodbye, not see you in a few days. Anna pulled out her laptop, opening the satellite image. This was taken 3 weeks ago. Same valley where they disappeared. Dorothy's breath caught. That's impossible. Search team said there was nothing, yet there it is. A cabin with solar panels, greenhouse, recent activity. Anna pointed to the tire tracks. Someone's living there. Has been for years. Dorothy sat back slowly, face pale. You think it's them? I'm going to find out. The sheriff from back then, is he still around? Retired. Runs Miller's Hardware, 2 blocks down. Dorothy hesitated. But there's something else. A week after they disappeared, a reporter came asking questions. Lots of questions about your parents, about what they were doing here, about your father's employer. He spent 3 days interviewing everyone, taking notes. Then suddenly, he left in the middle of the night. Never published anything. What reporter? Young guy, Calgary paper. And the next day, Dorothy's voice dropped to barely a whisper. The sheriff called off the search. Said it was costing too much. No point continuing. Just like that. Closed case. The pieces were forming connections Anna hadn't known existed. A reporter who vanished. A search abruptly ended. Restricted forestry roads and detailed maps. What if this wasn't about survival at all? What if her family had been running from something far more dangerous than a winter storm? Miller's Hardware store smelled of sawdust and machine oil. Anna found Jack Miller sorting screws with methodical precision. He looked up, and recognition flashed across his weathered face. Not of her specifically, but of her resemblance to her mother. You're the Torres girl. Not a question. I have questions about the search you shut down 15 years ago. His jaw tightened. For a long moment he just stared. Then his shoulders sagged with the weight of old secrets. He gestured toward a cramped office at the back. I've been waiting 15 years for someone to come back and ask. He unlocked a drawer and pulled out a thick manila folder. I kept copies of everything the department made me destroy. Anna's hands shook, taking the folder. Inside were documents, photographs, handwritten notes, all marked with dates from 2009. Your father wasn't just an environmental consultant, Jack began quietly. He was a whistleblower. He'd discovered that the logging company operating here was illegally dumping toxic chemicals in protected watersheds. We're talking cancer-causing compounds, birth defects, contaminated drinking water for entire towns downstream. The room tilted. What? He'd collected evidence. Soil samples, water quality reports, internal documents proving the company knew and covered it up. He was planning to go public the week after your family's trip. Jack's voice carried 15 years of guilt. The company found out. They wanted the evidence destroyed and your father silenced. Are you saying they killed my family? No. Jack met her eyes directly. Your parents were smarter than that. 3 days before the trip, your father came to me privately. Told me everything. About the evidence, the threats, his plan to disappear. He pulled out a map with coordinates in red ink. The exact location from the satellite image. You knew, Anna whispered. All this time you knew they might be alive. I suspected. But I couldn't prove it without endangering them. The company had people watching. Jack reached deeper into the drawer, producing a USB drive. Your father gave me this for safekeeping. Everything he collected. He told me if anything happened, hold on to it until the company collapsed or enough time passed. Why didn't you expose them? The words came heavy with old pain. Because 2 weeks after the search ended, I got a visit. Men in suits, no names. They said if I ever mentioned the contamination, if I suggested your family's disappearance was anything but accident, they'd make sure the surviving daughter had a tragic accident. They had your school schedule, your route home, photos of you with your aunt. Anna felt tears burning. So you buried it. I was a small-town sheriff. I couldn't protect you against that kind of power. So I buried the evidence and prayed your family made it to wherever they were going. He looked at her with something like hope. The company went bankrupt 8 years ago. The threats are gone. If your family's alive out there, maybe it's finally time. But Anna was already thinking ahead. If the company was gone, why were her parents still hiding? Unless there was something more. Something Jack didn't know about. The reporter who came asking questions. What happened to him? Jack's expression darkened. Found out he took a job with the company a month later. Substantial pay increase, sudden career change. Either they bought his silence, or they threatened him too. How many people had been silenced? How many threads led back to her family's disappearance? And if the company was truly gone, what was keeping her family in hiding? Anna met David Chen at a coffee shop an hour north of Pine Ridge. Neutral territory where locals wouldn't recognize them. Through the window, she spotted him before entering. Mid-30s, glasses, nervous energy. He looked up when she entered, genuine fear in his eyes. Ms. Torres, thank you for meeting me. I wasn't sure you would. He stood awkwardly, nearly knocking over his coffee. Dorothy said you left Pine Ridge in the middle of the night 15 years ago. The sheriff said you took a job with the logging company. Which version is true? David flushed. Both. Neither. It's complicated. He opened his laptop, glancing around nervously. I did take a job with Cascade Environmental Industries, but not because they bought me. They gave me an ultimatum. Take the job and stay quiet, or my family back in Hong Kong would have problems with visas, business licenses, everything. Photos of my parents' restaurant, my sister's apartment. They knew where everyone I loved lived. So you chose silence. I chose survival. I was 23. His hands shook opening files, but I kept my research. Told myself someday, when it was safe, I'd finish the story. When Cascade went bankrupt in 2016, I thought finally I could publish. He turned the screen toward her. A news article. Former Cascade CEO found dead in apparent suicide. Marcus Holloway orchestrated the cover-up. When the company collapsed, I tried to interview him. The night before our meeting, he supposedly hung himself. David pulled up a police report. His wife said he'd been paranoid, collecting evidence about investors who'd used Cascade as a front. After his death, documents from his study were missing. Someone cleaned up. That's what I think. And if they were willing to kill the CEO... He pulled up a map marking locations throughout the Rockies. I've been investigating independently for 8 years. Cascade wasn't just dumping their waste. They were being paid to dispose of hazardous materials from pharmaceutical companies, research facilities, government contractors. Materials that should have been processed legally, but were dumped in remote watersheds instead. How much material? Enough to contaminate water supplies for millions over decades. Enough to cause cancer clusters, birth defects. The liability runs into billions. The people who paid Cascade are still operating, still powerful, still very interested in making sure no one connects them to this. The scope was staggering. This wasn't just about one family. It was conspiracy reaching into corporations, government agencies, possibly international organizations. You have proof? Some. Enough to know your father was right to run. David hesitated. Ms. Torres, I need to tell you something else. When I heard you were in Pine Ridge, I started monitoring communications. There's chatter on encrypted forums where corporate security people communicate. Someone knows you're looking. Someone is watching. Her blood ran cold. How long? Since you contacted the satellite company. They're trying to figure out what you know, whether you've found anything. You need to be careful. These people have killed to protect their secrets before. Anna thought about the USB drive locked in her motel safe, the documents from Jack, the trail leading to her family. If they're watching me, maybe I can use that. Lead them somewhere that isn't where my family actually is. David's eyes widened. You think you know where they are? I have coordinates. Signs of settlement hidden for over a decade. She made a decision. I'm going to find them. But first, I need to lay a false trail. That's incredibly dangerous. Everything about this is dangerous. My family has been hiding for 15 years. I'm done letting them hide alone. Anna found Maria Blackwood at the trailhead loading supplies into a weathered pickup. Mid-50s, steel gray hair and a practical braid, the lean strength of someone who'd spent decades in mountains. Maria moved with practiced efficiency, not looking up. You the filmmaker looking for a guide into high country? Maria's tone made clear she already knew. Dorothy told me you know these mountains better than anyone. Dorothy talks too much. But affection colored her voice. She finally turned, weathered eyes studying Anna with unsettling intensity. You're looking for the valley, the one from satellite images. The directness caught Anna off guard. How did you— Small town. Word travels. Maria closed the tailgate with a solid thunk. Plus, I've known about that settlement for 9 years. My sister lives there. The revelation hit like physical force. Your sister left her abusive husband in 2015, took her kids, vanished. Police thought he'd killed them. He went to prison for murder without bodies. Maria's expression was carefully neutral. Want to know the truth? I helped her disappear, drove her to accessible roads, gave her a map, told her how to find people who could help her hide. You knew where she was this whole time? Been leaving supply drops twice a year for 9 years. Food, medicine, things they can't make themselves. I respect her choice to stay hidden, even though it means I can't have real relationship with my nephews. Old pain lived underneath the pragmatic exterior. So when Dorothy called saying someone was asking about that valley, I knew you'd find me eventually. Anna showed her the satellite image. Is my family there? Maria studied it carefully. I've seen a woman who looks like this. She pointed to an old photograph. Same eyes. I've seen a young man who might be the right age for your brother. But I don't ask names. That's how it works. Everyone has reasons for hiding, and we respect privacy. I need to see them. That's between you and them. But I'll tell you, the people there chose it. They're not prisoners, not lost. They're hiding because the alternative is worse. Maria's gaze was steady. If you expect a movie reunion, you'll be disappointed. Your family isn't the same people who disappeared. The words stung, but Anna had prepared for this reality. I understand, but I still need to try. Maria nodded slowly. We leave in 3 days. That gives you time for proper gear, and me time to make sure you're not followed. Meet me at this address tomorrow, 6 a.m. Come alone. Tell no one where you're going. Make sure you're not followed. Why 3 days? Because winter in high country isn't something you rush into. Because trails are treacherous with spring runoff. And because I need to verify you're not being followed. Maria pulled paper from her pocket, scribbling an address. I need to make sure you're clean before leading anyone to that settlement. The next morning at the hunting cabin, Maria had surveillance cameras monitoring access roads. They waited, watching screens in tense silence. An hour later, Maria pointed. That sedan. Been there 20 minutes. No one's gotten out. She sent a friend to check. The sedan immediately fled. 2 men in suits. Professional camera equipment. They were watching for you. Maria closed the laptop decisively. We're not going near that valley for 2 weeks. You'll spend that time publicly visible in Clearwater, 200 miles northwest. Make it look like you think your family went there. I'll quietly scout the real route. For 2 weeks, Anna played the role perfectly. Stayed in Clearwater, interviewed locals, documented everything on social media. She felt eyes constantly watching. On day 13, her hotel room was searched. Nothing taken, but someone had photographed her notes. Maria called. They're desperate. Time to move. That night, she left her tracked phone in the rental car and climbed into Maria's truck. 6-hour drive, Maria said. Then the real journey begins. The hike was brutal. 3 days through terrain designed to break human bodies. Maria led along invisible trails marked by subtle signs, scratched bark, colored cord in high branches, stone cairns under brush. Settlement moves markers seasonally, Maria explained. They know how to stay hidden. Anna's pack, 60 pounds of supplies and equipment, made her back ache. Blisters formed despite expensive boots, but Maria showed no mercy, setting a relentless pace. They made camp in a rock-sheltered clearing. As stars emerged in impossible numbers, Maria finally spoke about what they'd find. About 40 people now, 12 families. Some been there since beginning. Maybe your family. Others newer, like my sister. They have systems, gardens, livestock, education, medical supplies. They've built something that works. How do they survive winters? Solar power, greenhouses, stored supplies. And community. That's the key. Out here, survival depends on helping each other. You share resources, skills, labor, raise each other's children, care for elderly and sick. Maria's expression softened. My sister says she's happier there than in her old life, even with hardships. But she can't leave. Can't or won't? That's the question you need to ask about your family. Even if danger's gone, would they want to come back? The second day was harder. They climbed into regions where snow still lay thick, air thinning with altitude. Maria set a pace that suggested they were racing some invisible deadline. Storm coming, she said at midday. Need to reach the next shelter before it hits. They practically ran 6 miles, reaching a waypoint cabin as snow began falling. The storm hit with ferocity Anna had never experienced. Wind screaming, snow so thick, visibility dropped to nothing. Temperature plummeting. They were trapped 20 hours. During the endless dark, Maria told her more about the settlement's history. Ajendedu started with 3 families in 2009. 3 separate groups, all running, who found each other by chance. They realized they could help each other, build something together. Word spread slowly through networks of people escaping domestic violence, corporate retaliation, legal persecution. The settlement became refuge. How did they keep it secret? By being invisible. No contact with outside world except controlled supply drops. Teaching children from birth their existence must remain hidden. Accepting they could never leave, never return, never reconnect with lives they'd left. When the storm broke, they emerged to find the world transformed. But Maria navigated by methods she didn't explain. Shadow angles, wind-bent trees, some internal compass. The third day, Maria stopped suddenly, pointing. Through trees, smoke rising in a thin, controlled line. Sue, we're close. Settlement has watchers. They need to see us coming, or we'll be seen as threats. They walked the final mile in complete silence. Anna felt eyes watching, though she never saw anyone. Then they emerged into a clearing. 7 log buildings with solar panels, gardens with greenhouses, chickens in fenced areas, laundry on lines, and standing in the center, watching their approach, her mother. 15 years older, silver-threaded hair, face mapped with lines. But unmistakably her mother. For a frozen moment, nobody moved. Then her mother's face crumpled, and she whispered, "Anna." Her mother crossed the clearing running, embracing her with desperate strength. "You shouldn't be here. How did you find us? Did anyone follow?" "No one followed." Anna's voice cracked. "Mom, you've been alive all this time." Her father appeared, moving slowly, expression weighted with guilt. A young man stood at the clearing's edge. Miguel, 20 years old now, studying her with uncertain eyes. "Miguel?" Her voice barely worked. He didn't approach, just watched her with their father's eyes in an unrecognizable face. "That was stupid," he finally said, "and brave." Inside their cabin, Anna saw a wall covered with photographs, images of her she'd posted online over the years. Graduation, awards, projects. Her mother had been secretly following her life. "We never stopped thinking about you," her mother said. "Then why didn't you come back?" Her father sank into a chair. "Sit down. You need to understand everything." They told her the complete truth. Her father had discovered illegal toxic waste dumping, deliberate disposal for pharmaceutical companies, government contractors, research facilities, crimes reaching into federal agencies and international corporations. They didn't just threaten us. They threatened you. You were 7, living with your aunt. They had photos of you walking to school, your schedule, friends' names, everything. So you faked your deaths and took Miguel because he was young enough to forget. Understanding crashed over her. "Leaving you was the hardest decision we ever made," her mother's voice broke. "After the company collapsed 8 years ago? The company was just a tool. Real powers are still active. We have evidence that could expose them." Her father showed files on a laptop, years of anonymous tips slowly pushing investigations. "Physical evidence is here." He gestured to a locked cabinet. "Soil samples, documents, digital can be dismissed. Physical evidence is undeniable. But the moment we surface to testify, you become targets." Miguel spoke from the doorway. "She came all this way. She deserves truth about what happens next. Does she stay or leave? You can't know about this place and leave. You either commit to this life or forget you found us." Before she could answer, a sound cut through the air. Helicopter rotors. Distant but approaching, growing louder. Her father went white. "No one knows we're here," Maria burst in. "Incoming! Military-grade helicopter." 4 minutes. Her mother gripped Anna's arm. "Did anyone follow you?" Around the settlement, people moved with practiced efficiency. Children ushered into buildings. Fires extinguished. Reflective items covered. Her father pulled weapons from hidden compartments. These weren't peaceful refugees. They were prepared to protect themselves. The helicopter's thunder grew deafening. After 15 years of successful hiding, somehow, someone had found them. The question burning in Anna's mind: had she led them here? The helicopter circled twice, its shadow sweeping like predator wings. Through trees, Anna glimpsed black metal. No markings. Private security, or worse. "Everyone to cache locations," her father commanded. Residents moved with military precision. This wasn't their first drill. He turned to Anna. "You and Maria, Northwest Shelter, quarter mile. Follow blue markers. Move." "I'm not leaving." "You don't get a choice. If they're here because of you, you're the primary target." His voice carried 15 years of constant vigilance. "Miguel, go with them." Her brother grabbed a rifle, moving with practiced confidence. At 20, he'd been training for this moment his entire conscious life. They ran. Maria led, Miguel brought up the rear, Anna stumbled between them, lungs burning. The blue markers were subtle. Scratches on bark, stones in specific patterns, but Maria found them instantly. Behind them, the helicopter landed. Shouts, boots hitting ground, military orders. "How many?" Anna gasped. "At least 6, Miguel said. "Professional team." They reached the shelter, a bunker built into hillside, camouflaged so completely Anna nearly ran past it. Inside was small, dark, stocked for long-term hiding. Through ventilation slits, they heard commotion below. Men's voices, aggressive. "We're looking for someone." A woman, early 30s, documentary filmmaker. "We know she's here." Her mother's steady reply. "This is private property. You're trespassing." "We're looking for her and evidence related to the Cascade contamination case. Anyone interfering becomes an accessory." Cascade. They'd said it explicitly. This was about evidence, about stopping any possibility truth would emerge. Miguel positioned his rifle at a slit. They're splitting up. 3 through cabins, 2 toward perimeter, 1 with helicopter. Maria pulled out a tablet. "Emergency satellite uplink. Only for emergencies," she typed rapidly, sending coordinates and descriptions. "Hours for response. Maybe longer. Hours?" Anna watched her parents kneeling in the clearing, surrounded by armed men. "We don't have hours." Miguel's finger moved to his trigger guard. "Kjanj Thander Auditorin. Then we change the situation ourselves. 3 of us, 6 of them. Terrible odds. But we know this terrain. The helicopter is their lifeline. If we disable it, they'll be trapped." "Exactly." He checked his rifle. "Then it becomes about who can outlast whom in wilderness. My money's on people who've lived here 15 years. Maria nodded. "There's a drainage gully. Overgrown, almost invisible. We can get within 50 yards. They exited through a concealed back entrance into dense thicket. The gully was exactly where Miguel said. A natural trench carved by runoff, deep enough to move through hidden. 20 agonizing minutes to cover 50 yards. Every sound amplified. Branches scraping, rocks shifting, ragged breathing. Below, systematic radio chatter continued. Maria stopped where the gully opened near the helicopter. The aircraft sat 30 yards away. Guard positioned 15 yards off, focused on the clearing. "Too far to rush," Maria whispered. "Need distraction." Miguel pulled a flare gun from his pack, aiming toward Forrest on the opposite side. The flare arced and exploded in treetops with brilliant magenta and sharp crack echoing off valley walls. Every head turned. The guard moved toward the clearing. They ran. Maria reached the helicopter first, yanking the pilot's door open. Miguel followed, rifle trained. Anna reached the control panel, pulling wires, yanking connections, breaking systems. Warning lights flashed across the console. Shouts from the clearing. Security team had realized. Men running toward them, weapons drawn. A shot rang out, warning but close. "Time to go," Miguel said. They abandoned the helicopter and ran for the gully. More shots cracked overhead. Miguel returned fire, suppressive, not lethal, giving cover. "Split up," Miguel commanded. "Lead them away. Make them chase shadows." "That's suicide," Anna protested. "That's survival." He was already moving. "Every minute we keep them busy is another minute for help to arrive." He vanished into forest with ease born of 15 years learning every inch of this terrain. Gunfire erupted. Miguel firing from new positions, drawing the team away. Maria pulled Anna deeper into the gully, then up into forest so dense it was almost impassable. Northern Cache. 2 miles, run! They ran. Behind them, pursuit faded, as Miguel led professional hunters on a chase through wilderness they didn't understand. But one thought burned in Anna's mind. Had help been summoned in time? The Northern Cache was barely large enough for 2 people. A hollow carved into rock, camouflaged with branches and moss. They collapsed inside, lungs burning, hearts hammering. From here, they couldn't see the settlement, couldn't hear chaos, could only wait and wonder if Miguel was still alive. "How long?" Anna's voice was barely a whisper. 4 hours minimum if rangers take us seriously. 6 to 8 more likely. Maria checked her tablet. Dim screen showing sent. I marked it urgent. Included keywords that trigger mandatory response. They have to respond. But will they get here in time? Maria's silence was answer enough. They waited in darkness. Time became meaningless. Anna thought about Miguel running through forest, drawing armed men away. About her parents kneeling in the clearing. About the USB drive in Jack's safe that could have prevented this. Hours passed. The tablet showed no new messages. Then voices. Close. Too close. Men searching systematically. Tracks lead this direction. 3 people, moving fast. Maria pointed to a crevice, a natural chimney leading upward. Escape route. They climbed 15 feet of rock in near darkness, emerging onto a narrow ledge, pressed against stone, barely breathing as searchers passed below. Nothing here. Moving to next grid. As dawn lightened the sky, they heard something that made Anna's stomach drop. Helicopter rotors. Different aircraft approaching from the east. Through trees, smaller, more agile, painted forest green. Reinforcements, Maria breathed. But the helicopter didn't land near the settlement. It circled, and Anna saw markings. RCMP, Royal Canadian Mounted Police. They came, she whispered. Your message. They actually came. The next hour was chaos viewed from distance. More helicopters arrived, police, rangers, emergency services. The security team tried to maintain position, but they were vastly outnumbered and suddenly aware their actions were being documented. Dynamics shifted. Aggressive security was now defensive, surrounded by actual law enforcement, being questioned about presence and weapons. Finally, Maria's tablet buzzed. Situation secured. Safe to emerge. Provide coordinates. The walk back took 30 minutes. Every muscle ached from hours of tension. But the forest was quiet except for birds and wind. The settlement looked like a war zone. Broken doors, scattered supplies, the disabled helicopter a testament to their desperate gambit. But the people were mostly okay. Shaken, some injured, but alive. Her mother saw her first, running across the clearing, embracing so hard it hurt. When they said 3 people fled, when we heard shooting. Miguel, Anna gasped. Where's Miguel? He came back an hour ago, led them in circles all night, vanished when police arrived. Her father appeared, face battered but determined. He's fine. She found her brother sitting outside a cabin, medic checking his arm. He looked up as she approached. Something changed in his expression. She'd proven herself in his world. That was stupid, he said, and brave. A Royal Canadian Mounted Police officer approached. Sergeant Williams, sharp eyes, no nonsense bearing. You're Anna Torres? We need your statement. But first, we need to talk about what this place is and who these people are. The next 6 hours were interviews. She told everything. Contamination evidence, threats, 15 years of hiding, corporate conspiracy. Other residents added their stories. Domestic violence survivors, whistleblowers, people targeted by various forms of persecution. Williams listened, expression growing grimmer. 40 people living here up to 15 years, all fleeing dangerous situations, all technically missing or presumed dead. If you reveal our location, if names end up in public reports, her father began. You're all targets again. I understand. Williams rubbed her temples. Legally, ethically, practically complicated. But you clearly have legitimate reasons for hiding. What happens now? We document what happened today. Assault, illegal intrusion, threat to civilians. The people who did this face serious charges. But the settlement itself requires conversations with multiple agencies, legal reviews, potentially witness protection. Williams pulled out a satellite phone. Rangers will establish perimeter. We'll bring supplies, medical care, legal counsel, and we'll figure out a path forward that keeps everyone safe. It sounded too good to be true. The people who sent that team are still out there, Anna said. They are. Which is why you'll document this entire story, create evidence so compelling and widely distributed that silencing anyone becomes impossible. Williams looked at Anna directly. Make it so big, it can't be buried. Over 3 weeks, the settlement transformed into a command center. RCMP established secure perimeter. Environmental lawyers flew in. Evidence specialists cataloged everything her father had preserved for 15 years. The locked cabinet yielded damning treasures. Soil samples showing contamination hundreds of times above safety limits, dated with chain of custody documentation. Original Cascade internal memos discussing disposal protocols they knew were illegal. Water quality reports showing consistent toxic compound patterns. And most devastating, a ledger listing payments from pharmaceutical companies, government contractors, research facilities for specialized disposal services. This isn't just Cascade, said Martin Reed, lead environmental prosecutor. He spread documents across the community hall table. This is RICO territory, organized criminal enterprise spanning multiple corporations and government agencies. Your father found proof of systemic, deliberate poisoning of public resources for profit. Anna filmed everything. Every interview, every piece of evidence, every testimony from settlement residents about why they'd fled, all building a narrative so comprehensive no one could dismiss it. But it wasn't just about contamination. Other residents had their own stories. Maria's sister escaping an abusive police officer husband, a corporate accountant who'd uncovered financial fraud, a family fleeing religious persecution, a pharmaceutical whistleblower. 40 people, 40 stories, connected by the thread of systems failing them. "This is bigger than we thought," Anna told Sergeant Williams. "Not just my family. It's about showing how many people fall through cracks, how many have no choice but to disappear. Which makes it more powerful, but more dangerous," Williams cautioned. "Every story potentially draws attention from different powerful interests." David Chen joined them 2 weeks in, bringing years of research and investigative journalism connections. He looked up from his laptop one day, face grim. There's been chatter. Corporate press releases about addressing historical compliance issues, PR firms being hired, legal teams mobilizing. They know something's coming. "It's worse," David continued. "I've been monitoring encrypted communications. There's a contract out. Someone wants this story stopped before it breaks." The settlement suddenly felt very vulnerable. Remote valley, 1 helicopter landing zone, limited supplies, 40 people including 12 children. "We accelerate the timeline," Anna said decisively. "How soon can we release?" Reed shook his head. "Legal process needs 3 more weeks. We're coordinating multiple jurisdictions, international authorities. This has to be airtight." 3 weeks is too long. Anna pulled up her editing timeline. "I can have a rough cut done in 48 hours. Not polished, but complete enough. We release that as preview, generate public attention, make ourselves too visible to quietly eliminate." Her father nodded slowly. "It's what I should have done 15 years ago. Let public attention protect us." The next 48 hours were editing marathon. She worked with Miguel, organizing footage, providing context, offering perspectives on growing up hidden. "You're good at this," she told him during a 3 a.m. session. He shrugged. "Never thought about filmmaking. Never thought about a career outside this valley. But now, maybe there's a future where I get to choose." The rough cut came together like puzzle pieces. It opened with her childhood bedroom, the satellite image, the journey to Pine Ridge. Interspersed were revelations, contamination evidence, corporate conspiracy, settlement's existence, stories of forced hiding. She didn't show faces of residents wanting privacy, used voice modification for those fearing retaliation, but showed enough physical evidence, documents, testimony, to make the case undeniable. They released it simultaneously across multiple platforms. The Valley of the Disappeared: How Corporate Crime Forces Families to Vanish. Within 2 hours, 10,000 views. 6 hours, 100,000. By day's end, major networks covering it, environmental organizations calling for investigations, social media exploding. And in the settlement, they waited to see how conspirators would respond. 48 hours later, 3 black SUVs appeared on the access road. Not aggressive security. This was different. Official-looking government flags, accompanied by what appeared to be official security. Williams met them at the perimeter. Anna watched on monitors, heart pounding. "They're from Justice Canada," Williams reported back via radio, "along with Environment Canada and RCMP Commissioner's Office. They're here to negotiate terms, protection, legal immunity for residents in exchange for full cooperation prosecuting contamination cases. They're taking this seriously. Documentary generated enough pressure that ignoring it isn't an option." Over the next week, lawyers and officials filled the settlement. Residents who'd been hiding for years were offered immunity, protection, support. After 15 years of fighting, suddenly they want to help? Her mother said during one break. Public attention changes everything, Reed explained. Covering up was cheaper than addressing it. Now, with documentary out, evidence shared publicly, covering up becomes impossible. But not everyone was happy. Major corporations named in evidence began fighting back, with lawyers, PR campaigns, motions to suppress evidence. This could take years, Reed warned. Multiple trials, appeals, jurisdictional challenges. But we're not hiding anymore, Miguel said. That has to count for something. The next 3 months became grinding battles in courtrooms. Apex Pharma had resources that dwarfed anything Anna could match. Teams of attorneys making 6 figures an hour, PR specialists, connections to sympathetic judges. The first major court date arrived in late June. Anna sat in the Calgary courthouse gallery watching her father cross-examined by lawyers systematically building a case that he was a disgruntled employee who'd stolen company property. Mr. Torres, you signed confidentiality agreements with your employer? Yes, but... And you removed physical samples from company property without authorization? I removed evidence of illegal activity. Please answer yes or no. Her father's jaw tightened. Yes. By the time cross-examination ended, doubt was visible in spectators' faces. The lawyers were good, turning the story from corporate crime to one man's theft and deception. But then prosecution presented physical evidence. Water samples showing contamination that couldn't be explained away. Internal Apex memos discussing disposal protocols explicitly violating federal regulations. EPA scientists confirming compounds could only come from pharmaceutical manufacturing. The case dragged on through summer. Weeks of testimony, expert witnesses, detailed analysis of decades-old samples. Judge Morrison listened with increasing displeasure. Meanwhile, life in the settlement tried to find normalcy. Children attended makeshift schools. Adults tended gardens. Miguel started online courses in environmental science, intending to become an official voice for contamination victims. I spent my whole life hiding from this, he told Anna. Maybe it's time to face it directly. Use what I've learned to help others. Her relationship with him evolved from strangers to siblings, though it would never be what it might have been. Too many years, too many different experiences, but they were building something new. In September, 5 months after the documentary's release, Judge Morrison issued her ruling. This court finds that while Mr. Torres technically violated employment contracts, those actions were undertaken in reasonable belief. They were necessary to prevent ongoing criminal activity and protect public health. Hope sparked in Anna's chest. Furthermore, evidence demonstrates that Apex Pharma engaged in systematic illegal disposal, causing measurable environmental damage. The documentation provided by Mr. Torres, regardless of how obtained, constitutes evidence of crimes outweighing procedural violations. Apex's lawyers shifted uncomfortably. Therefore, this court denies the motion to dismiss. The documentary constitutes protected speech on matters of public concern. The injunction is denied. Defamation claims dismissed with prejudice. Morrison looked at Apex's lawyers. This court is referring evidence to federal prosecutors for criminal investigation. The gallery erupted. Her father sat frozen, tears streaming. 15 years of vindication delivered in one ruling. Outside, surrounded by reporters and cameras, Anna faced the media storm. This isn't about vindication for one family. This is about holding corporations accountable for poisoning communities. This ruling is just the first step. The clip went viral. Class action lawsuits were filed. Environmental groups amplified the story. Politicians called for hearings. In late October, federal prosecutors announced criminal indictments against 14 executives connected to the conspiracy. Apex's stock plummeted. 2 other pharmaceutical companies faced investigations. Her mother called in November. We've been approved. The settlement is now officially Pine Valley Wilderness Retreat Center. We can operate legally, help others who need refuge. Miguel left for Vancouver in September, nervous and excited. I can't stay hidden forever, he told their mother. Just be careful. I learned from the best. He hugged them. Thank you for finding us, for fighting for us. In December, corporations facing liability agreed to settlements, environmental cleanup funding, medical monitoring for affected communities, a $1 billion victim fund. It's not enough, David said, reviewing the terms. No, but it's something. Anna looked at the agreements, product of 8 months of litigation. We forced them to acknowledge what they did. That matters. On New Year's Eve, the settlement held a gathering. 40 people who'd spent years hiding, now celebrating survival and uncertain futures. Her father stood to speak. When we came here, we thought we'd lost everything. But we were wrong. We found each other. We built something that matters more than what we left behind. Community, trust, shared purpose. He looked at Anna. My daughter reminded me that hiding isn't the same as living. That sometimes you have to take risks, tell truth even when it's terrifying. Whatever comes next, we do it without fear. We do it together. The room erupted in applause and tears. As midnight approached, Anna stood outside with Miguel, watching stars blaze across winter sky. "Oh, what happens now?" he asked. "We figure it out as we go." That's not much of a plan. It's better than what we had a year ago. Spring came again, marking 2 years since the satellite image. Pine Valley Wilderness Retreat Center welcomed its first official guests. 3 families in protective custody, while legal proceedings advanced. They arrived nervous, traumatized, looking for safety. Anna watched her mother orient them, explaining systems, community expectations, balance between privacy and collective responsibility. Her mother had found her calling, using 15 years of survival experience to help others navigate similar situations. "You're not alone," her mother told a woman whose testimony had brought down a pharmaceutical company. "We've all been where you are. We survived. You will too." Miguel thrived in Vancouver, video calling weekly. He'd discovered a love for environmental law and talent for public speaking. Professors encouraged him toward graduate school, policy work, positions where his unique experience could become advocacy. "Trouwt fiedert van eind, coming home this summer," he'd said during their last call, "going to help Dad with retreat programming. I want new families to see there's life after hiding." Her father designed curriculum, wilderness survival, trauma processing, community building, practical preparation for reintegration. Everything he'd learned, packaged into something useful for others. Anna stayed involved but built her own life too. A new documentary about labor organizing in tech. Consulting work, teaching filmmakers about ethics and source protection. A relationship with someone from a film festival. Tentative, complicated by unpredictable schedule and emotional baggage, but real. David's nonprofit was thriving, helping dozens of whistleblowers navigate coming forward safely. "We're not perfect," he told her, "but we're better than what your father had. That matters." She'd finished a follow-up documentary, not about crime, but about resilience. Quieter, more introspective. Critics called it meditative and healing. It reached people who needed to see it. Survivors of trauma, families rebuilding, communities trying to heal. In May, she received an invitation to keynote an environmental justice conference in Ottawa. Standing before hundreds, she thought about the journey. 2 years ago, I was a filmmaker with a hole in my heart, she began. My family had disappeared 15 years earlier, but I never stopped asking questions. She told the complete story. Contamination, conspiracy, the settlement, people who built lives in hiding when systems failed. My father should have been protected. Instead, he was threatened, forced to flee. But communities can protect people when systems fail. The settlement worked for 15 years. Her voice grew stronger. We've made progress. Corporations held accountable, Cleanup underway, victims compensated. But structural problems haven't been solved. We still have inadequate whistleblower protections. So celebrate victories. But don't stop fighting. This is ongoing. This is generational. Thunderous applause. Afterward, dozens approached. Whistleblowers, activists, journalists, policymakers wanting to improve protections. In June, the federal government announced a whistleblower protection program at Pine Valley. The Prime Minister attended, giving speeches in the clearing where armed security had once detained residents. "Do you think it'll work?" her father asked. "I hope so. But systems are only as good as people running them." She looked at him. "You did the right thing. Eventually, slowly, imperfectly, it mattered." That evening, the settlement hosted everyone who'd been part of the journey. Legal teams, journalists, residents, officials, advocates. Miguel arrived with university friends, giving them tours, explaining history. He'd become an ambassador, proud of his roots, while building a future beyond them. In July, her follow-up documentary premiered, focused on resilience rather than exposure. It reached survivors who needed hope that healing was possible. In August, environmental cleanup was completed at contamination sites. 20 years of illegal dumping addressed in 2 years of remediation. She visited a remediation site with her father in September. They watched heavy equipment move contaminated soil. "This is because of you," she told him. "It started with all of us." Change comes from communities deciding enough is enough. In October, she accepted a teaching position developing a course on documentary ethics, passing on lessons learned through painful experience. On the 2-year anniversary, she sat in her childhood bedroom. The walls held different photographs now, not just missing family, but recent images. Miguel at university, parents at the settlement, group photos of residents, a family shattered, and slowly, imperfectly, rebuilding. Her phone buzzed. "Miguel? Presenting at Environmental Law Conference next month about whistleblower protections. Using our story," she smiled. He was carrying the work forward. Her parents through the retreat. She through filmmaking and teaching. David through journalism. The work was never finished. But every story told, every truth exposed, every system reformed, it mattered. She thought about who she'd been 2 years ago. Successful, but hollow. Driven by unanswerable questions. She'd found answers leading to more questions. Found family, but they were different people now. Maybe that was the point. Maybe healing wasn't erasing scars, but learning to live with them while moving forward. 5 years after the satellite image, Anna returned to her childhood bedroom one final time. Her aunt was selling the house. Time to sort through remnants of her early life. The photographs remained, joined by new memories. Family dinners at the settlement. Miguel's graduation. Her parents' renewal ceremony after 25 years of marriage, including 15 years of hiding. She packed carefully, deciding what to keep and release. Some things needed preserving. Others needed letting go. Maria called. "Thought you'd want to know. My sister's leaving the valley. Moving to town, enrolling her boys in regular school. Says it's time to stop hiding, even from normal life." "How is she?" "Terrified. Excited. Both." Maria laughed. "Asked if I'd help her learn to drive in traffic. Hasn't done that in 10 years. At the retreat center, her parents were training others to take over operations. "We can't run this forever," her father said. "We're getting older. Time to hand it off." Miguel had been accepted to law school at Stanford. He'd spend summer at the settlement learning operations before starting in fall. "I want to understand every part," he explained. The hiding, refuge, legal battles, aftermath. "So when I'm representing whistleblowers, I actually know what they're facing." David's nonprofit was helping dozens navigate coming forward safely. "We're not perfect, but we're better than what your father had." Anna had finished a new documentary about community resilience. Quieter, more personal. It wouldn't win the awards her first had, but it said something true about recovery. The teaching position was full-time now. She loved training young filmmakers to think about ethics, responsibility, the power and danger of storytelling. Documentary work matters, she told students, but it's complicated. You're dealing with real people, real trauma, real consequences. Success isn't just views or awards. It's whether you treated subjects with dignity and whether the story made a difference worth the cost. She edited footage from the settlement's 5-year anniversary. 40 people had attended. Original residents, new refugee seekers, support staff, legal team. They'd gathered in the clearing where everything had almost ended, celebrating survival and community. Miguel had given a speech. This place saved my family. But more, it showed me what's possible when people choose to protect each other. That's what I want to spend my life doing. Creating systems making protection possible, making visible worlds safer for truth-tellers. Her father had spoken too. 20 years ago, I discovered crimes that seemed too big to fight. I chose to run, hide, protect my family the only way I knew. I don't regret that. But I'm grateful my daughter made a different choice. To fight, expose, trust that truth could win. She was right. Now, sitting in her childhood bedroom, surrounded by photographs of 2 different lives, Anna thought about choices. Her parents chose survival. She chose exposure. Miguel was choosing advocacy. David choosing support. Maria choosing connection. All were right. All were necessary. The work would continue. There would always be corporations cutting corners, officials covering crimes, systems failing vulnerable people. But there would also always be people willing to speak truth, document injustice, fight for accountability. Her phone buzzed. Her mother. "Dinner tonight? Your father's making chili." Miguel on video call. "Family meal." She smiled. Family. Not the family she'd lost or imagined, but the family they'd become. Complicated, imperfect, scarred but strengthened by survival. "I'll be there," she texted back. She looked one last time at the childhood bedroom. The satellite image was still pinned to the wall, the impossible photograph that changed everything. She carefully unpinned it, folded it, placed it in a box marked Keep. Some stories ended, others transformed into new beginnings. She closed the door and drove toward the settlement, toward family, toward whatever came next. The documentary was complete. Legal battles mostly won. The settlement evolved from hiding place to healing center. Her family survived and was now helping others survive. It wasn't a perfect ending, but it was real, and it was enough. Anna stood at the settlement's edge on a crisp autumn morning, camera in hand, filming what would be the final sequence of her comprehensive documentary series, 5 years of footage condensed into a trilogy that told the complete story. From discovery to exposure to healing. The valley had transformed. What began as a desperate refuge had become a legitimate sanctuary, hosting families in protective custody, offering programs for trauma recovery, and training whistleblowers in survival skills, both literal and legal. Her mother walked over, silver hair catching morning light. "You're thinking too much." "I can tell. Just wondering if we did the right thing. Exposing everything. We put so many people at risk and saved countless others. The contamination cleanup alone, how many lives did that save? How many children won't develop cancer because your father spoke up and you made the world listen?" Anna nodded, but doubt lingered. The cost had been high. Her father still had nightmares. Miguel struggled with identity, caught between the wilderness boy he'd been and the law student he was becoming. Families in the settlement bore scars that would never fully heal. But the contamination sites were being remediated. New whistleblower protection laws had passed. Corporate accountability measures were strengthened. The system bent even if it didn't break. David arrived for a final interview, carrying his latest book, a comprehensive analysis of environmental crime and the communities that fought back. Anna's family was featured prominently, but so were dozens of other stories he'd uncovered through his nonprofit work. "Ready for your close-up?" Anna joked, setting up her camera. "Never. But let's do this anyway." He settled into the chair she'd positioned. the valley spreading out behind him as backdrop. What do you want to know? 5 years later, do you think we won? David considered carefully. We won battles. The war continues. But we proved that truth can survive, that communities can protect each other, that even massive conspiracies can be exposed. That matters. Maybe it doesn't change everything overnight, but it changes what people believe is possible. After filming David, Anna found Miguel on video call. He was in his Stanford dorm room, law textbooks piled around him, looking exhausted but determined. "How's it going?" she asked. "Hard. Everyone here has these polished backgrounds, prep schools, internships, family connections. Meanwhile, I spent my childhood learning to identify edible plants and avoid hypothermia." He smiled tiredly. "But I'm not giving up. Someone needs to represent people like Dad. Might as well be someone who actually understands what they're going through. You're going to be incredible at this. Maybe. Or maybe I'll fail spectacularly." He shrugged. "But at least I'm trying. That's more than I could do when I was hiding." That evening, the settlement held a quiet dinner. Just family and close friends. No cameras, no documentation, just people who'd survived something extraordinary trying to enjoy an ordinary meal. Her father raised his glass. To 5 years. To survival. To the family that endured and the family we've built. They toasted, and Anna felt the weight of the journey. From that satellite image to this moment. So much pain, so much fighting, so much slow, imperfect progress. After dinner, she walked to the clearing's edge with her parents. The stars were brilliant, unobscured by city lights. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "The 15 years you lost?" Her father was quiet for a long moment. "I regret that it was necessary. I regret the systems failed so completely that disappearing seemed like the only option. But the years themselves?" He looked at her mother. "We survived together. We raised Miguel. We helped others. Those years weren't lost. They were different." Her mother added, "And we got you back. We thought we'd sacrificed you to keep you safe. Instead, you found us and saved us. That's not something I could have imagined." Later, alone in the cabin that had become her retreat workspace, Anna reviewed the final cut of her documentary trilogy. 3 films, 12 hours of content, countless interviews and testimonies, all building toward one central truth. Systems fail, but people endure. The final sequence showed the settlement at sunset. Residents gathered for evening meal, children playing, gardens thriving. Voiceover, her voice, spoke the closing words. 5 years ago, a satellite image revealed an impossible truth. A family presumed dead was alive and hiding. But their story was never just about them. It was about everyone the systems failed. Everyone who had to choose between truth and survival. Everyone who found that sometimes the only way forward is to step outside the broken system and build something new. The contamination has been acknowledged. The cleanup continues. Laws have changed. But the deeper truth remains. We are only as strong as our willingness to protect each other. When institutions fail, communities must step in. When systems break, people must build alternatives. This is not a story about perfect endings. It's a story about imperfect survival, about families rebuilt across impossible distances, about healing that takes years and is never quite complete, about justice that arrives slowly, partially, but arrives nonetheless. My family spent 15 years hidden. Then they spent 5 years fighting. Now they're teaching others to survive, to speak truth, to believe that accountability is possible even when it seems impossible. The work continues. It always will. But today, in this valley, in this community, there is peace. Hard-won, precious, fragile peace. And sometimes, that's enough. Anna saved the file and closed her laptop. The documentary was complete. Her family's story was told. Whatever came next would be new chapters, not endings. Her phone buzzed with a message from Miguel. "Finished my first semester. Coming home for holidays. Can't wait to see everyone. She smiled, typing back. We'll be here. We're not going anywhere. And that, she realized, was the real victory. Not the legal wins, or the documentary success, or the policy changes, though all of those mattered. The real victory was that her family had stopped running. They'd found a place, built a community, and chosen to stay. Not because they had to, because they wanted to. Outside her window, lights glowed in cabin windows across the settlement. Families settling in for the night, safe and together. Her parents in their home. Maria visiting her sister. New residents learning what it meant to be part of something larger than survival. 5 years ago, she'd opened an email that changed everything. Now, she closed her laptop on a story that was complete, but never really ending. Because the work of truth-telling, of accountability, of building communities that protect each other, that work was never finished. But tonight it could rest. If this story left you as impacted as it did me, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and comment your opinion below. Each comment is like a new piece that can help unravel other mysteries like this one.